Views and opinions of the host and guest do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Uber Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to Uber Radio Network.
You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth. A lie. No man is obsolete. You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time. I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages. You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect. An ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning. I am a human being. You're a librarian, Mr. Wordsworth. Books and 2-cent fines and pamphlets and closed stacks on the musty insides of a language factory that spews out meaningless words on an assembly line. Words, Mr. Wordsworth, that have no substance and no dimension. Like air, like the wind, like a vacuum that you make believe has an existence by scribbling index numbers on little cards. I don't care. I tell you, I don't care. I'm a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought aloud, that thought lives, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
Welcome to Political Truth Radio. Prepare yourself to be informed.
And welcome, everybody. This is Political Truth Radio, and we're on again, and guess what? I'm flying solo tonight. Yeah, unfortunately, Jennifer is sick. She got sick, yesterday was her birthday, and I don't think she partied too hard. I just think she got sick on her birthday, which was kind of a bummer for her. So, yeah, Jennifer, if you're listening, or when you do hear the podcast, we hope you get better soon. At least I do, you know. I'm sure some of these people out here do too, don't you? I'm sure. Well, you know, it's been kind of a crazy week. For news, for world happenings, happenings around the country. It has been just crazy. And the first thing I want to get to real quick is YU-55. I'm going to let everybody know that I saw earlier a report that it flew by, didn't do any harm, didn't do anything, didn't knock the moon out of the orbit, didn't destroy the Earth, and we're all still here and we're broadcasting. So that's a good thing. Because if it would have hit us, it probably wouldn't have been good, and we would have missed our show tonight. So we have that. We also have the, little tidbit of news that the Court of Appeals, the Federal Court of Appeals today upheld Obamacare, which is, of course, as most of us are aware, quite clearly unconstitutional, because you can't force people into buying a product. So guess what? They upheld anti-constitution today. So yeah, that's the news. That's where we're at, and that's where we're heading in this country. And I'll tell you, it's not a pretty sight. I really don't think it's pretty at all. So, all right. Well, we're going to get right to the real meat of the matter tonight, because we have got some very, very important news to share with everybody. And it's concerning Iran. And I know a lot of people, you know, have heard whispers here and there of actually what is going on over there. If you're watching mainstream media, you're watching Fox, you're watching CNN, you know, basically it's kids out selling cookies or something, you know, because you don't hear the real story, you don't hear the real ramifications of what's going on, and honestly, you're uninformed if that's what you're watching is mainstream media. You have got to hit the other media. A lot of it on the internet, and our guest tonight represents one of the very best sources that you're going to find on the internet of real news and what's really going on, from LaRouchePack.com, and we'll give you all the contact information so you guys can check out their site and actually get really well informed on a lot of things that are going on. But I want to introduce our guest. His name is Michael Billington, and he is with LaRouchePack.com, and he's their Southeast Asia desk correspondent for Executive Intelligent Review, or EIR. He's been an associate of Lyndon H. LaRouche, if I could talk, Jr. since 1972. This man has been in the Peace Corps back in 69 to 79, and then again in 69 to 71. If I could read and talk, it would be great. in the course of the 35 years, he has been, fundraising against Oliver North, just many different things. I mean, he's got quite a resume here in front of me. If I were to read it all, I'd take all of our time for talking, and we wouldn't get any issues out. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to him here in a second, and I want him to tell, I guess, basically, Mike, if you would, the basics of what is going on with what looks like an impending attack on Iran. Kind of set the stage for it.
Well, this is thanks, Brian, and I'm very glad to be on your show. This is the sort of final step in a escalation of the Emperor Obama. We call him Nero. He has a Nero complex, a narcissist complex, which has become a megalomaniac, seriously psychologically deranged guy who believes that he has the power to wage war against any nation he wishes, to kill anybody he wishes, heads of state, American citizens, with no concern for the Constitution, with no concern for the Congress, no concern for the law, and certainly no concern for morality and the idea of man in the image of God. And the sort of mark that we were heading towards World War III was not just the illegal war on Libya, a nation in which they didn't even try to pretend was a threat to our nation, which is the requirement under law for us to wage war on a nation. They didn't even pretend that. They just decided they didn't like him, they were going to take it over, and they were going to kill him. And the public execution of him and his associates in that brutal U.S.-run attack, which was launched with drones, followed up by French aircraft, and then with British, French, and other troops leading the so-called rebels into that bloody execution shown around the world as a snuff film. This was like a declaration that we were no longer a nation. We were being led by a man who is in fact committed to the British imperial ideology. And the next step, necessarily, was to go on a rampage in the Middle East, which you have to think about as being like the Balkans before World War I, where the British manipulated nation against nation in order to provoke ultimately a war between Germany and Russia, both World War I and World War II for that matter, in order to break up Europe, to break up any alliance of nations by getting them to fight each other. And at this point, the object of the imperial interests in London and in New York and Wall Street, facing the complete, utter collapse of the Western financial system, is that they must prevent the United States and Russia and China of any kind of alliance like Franklin Roosevelt had in World War II against fascism. To prevent that alliance, which is the one alliance of powers which could replace this bankrupt global IMF monetary system, and to restore what used to be called the American system, a creditary system based on investments in long-term growth and development. And to do that, they're using this cockpit for war in the Middle East, like they did the Balkans before, to provoke a conflict in which the U.S. will be dragged into a confrontation, not just with Iran, but in a certain sense, Iran or Syria as surrogates for Russian and Chinese interests, in order to provoke a global conflict which will be nuclear and will be a Holocaust in the real term, and that's their intention. So the way this developed is that about a week ago, it was revealed by certain more sane elements of the Israeli military and political intelligence that this madman Bibi Netanyahu, just about as crazy as Obama, was trying to get his cabinet to agree to an immediate attack on Iran. And anybody with any sense knows that Israel can't take Iran on its own. The idea was to draw the U.S. into a situation where, because of the Iranian counterattack, which there will be, quite serious, in fact, that they would thereby drag the United States into this war against Iran and then ultimately to confront the Russians and the Chinese. So luckily, even though here in the United States the nation has become so crass, so corrupt, especially our Congress, but because of the media, the majority of the population, here we are debating launching what most people recognize could become not only a horrible war but World War III, and there's hardly a whimper in the United States. In fact, our Congress just passed a hideous attack, a group of sanctions on Iran, which are actually sanctions on other countries that do business with Iran. So basically, it's only because a group of Israeli intelligence and military people who recognized that this was absolutely insane broke the story, and as a result, there's now an intense debate in Israel against this fanatic Bibi Netanyahu to stop this atrocity, and that debate has become public news around the world, so that even though it's largely not covered here in the United States, it is covered, but not much. But in the rest of the world, everybody is now debating or seeing that we're faced with this threat of an invasion for absolutely no reason. And that's where we stand. If we don't stop this lunatic in the White House, get him out of office quickly, not in the next election. We don't even have the time to think about the next election. Get this man out as being insane on the 25th Amendment. Get him impeached, whatever it takes. Get him to resign the way Nixon was forced to resign. Get him out. And get saner elements within the Democratic Party in alliance with saner elements in the Republican Party to immediately stop this threat of war and to begin implementing the Glass-Steagall reforms needed to basically shut down this bankrupt banking system and set up an American system again.
For those of us that are for those people that are listening that may not know, can you quickly just give a quick synopsis of what Glass-Steagall is for them?
Yeah, well, that's the key. We have to have Glass-Steagall or we won't survive. Glass-Steagall was the primary legislation that Roosevelt rammed through when he came into power back in 1933 in a depression that was not anywhere near as severe as the one today, but nonetheless was very severe. And he recognized that the fascism that was taking place in Europe at that time, with Hitler in Germany, who came into power about the same time, and Mussolini in Italy, and the Spanish fascist government and so forth, that this was being imposed on these nations by the banking interests centered in London. And he recognized that it was totally possible that we could have fascism here in the United States. We were in a horrible breakdown crisis, and he knew that the banks intended to impose the levels of deadly austerity in order to preserve their debt, their worthless, bankrupt gambling debts by and large, from speculative kinds of investments rather than investments in the real physical economy. And so Roosevelt took it on. He immediately called the bankers down to Congress to answer for their destruction of the U.S. economy, mobilized the American people behind the fact that these were a bunch of crooks, J.P. Morgan included, and then